How's it going, guys? This is Chase Castle and DQ on the War Room podcast. What's up, DQ?
Not much. How we doing, man? Back in business.
Back in business. Finally, we've gone through two recordings of this. That first one turned out a little iffy. Second was a little bit better. Hopefully, we're getting this one right. To
Third
be
time's a
sort of
charm. This has got
the
to be
first
it.
one we publish. Hope you guys all enjoy this, though. I'm happy that we're back. I miss being on WVOF, but right now we decided to still do our own thing. Right now, what you see on the screen, at least if you're watching, I guess on YouTube, this is sort of generic right now. You got two pictures of Damian as Mark Sanchez, me as some guy who tweeted out a Redskins cheerleader to go to prom with me, and I just graduated college. In top right-hand corner, you got a Fairfield Redskins and Jets logo. It's going to get better. I'm going to have a better War Room logo coming out next week. I'm working on that currently. We're both, Damian and I, both a little busy in our own respective lives. But we know why you're here, and it's to listen to football, talk football. And we're not broadcasting anything, but we got some games to go over. Not going to lie, this week didn't have that many exciting games. I know me and Damian talking earlier, we both sort of agreed that it wasn't anything crazy. But we can hop into it regardless. And let's start off with DQ Blazer Boy, DQ Blizzard, the Jets. Jets lose a close one to the Atlanta Falcons. What's your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Oh, again, just another fourth quarter botch. This is just something that they've been trying to, as a team, figure out, trying to understand what they have to do to hold on to these leads late into the game. And it's just another situation of where the defense just couldn't stop the opposing offense and get their offense back on the field to just start running the ball and control the clock. They had the game pretty much going up until the last point when Tevin Coleman juked out three different defenders. I believe it was Jamal Adams, Marcus May, and Justin Burris. Just literally juked out of three different guys and ran down 50 yards that got him into field goal range. Then ultimately ended up scoring with Mohamed Sanu in the last 3 minutes of the game. So that's how they basically threw that one away. It's one of those things where, as a Jet fan, you like to see that your team is competing. You like to see that they're not getting blown out. But it's tough to watch games where they look like they're supposed to win it and they can't close it out. And that's how it's been basically since the Miami game. The Miami game, they had the lead. They blew it. The game before that, they had the lead against New England at one point. They blew that. And now you have Atlanta where, again, they have the lead and they blow it. It's just one of those things, like they'll be good enough to compete, but I don't think they'll be able to beat some of the better teams in the league. So if you have to give a game ball to, I'd probably have to give it to Josh McCown. Runner-up would probably be Robbie Anderson. McCown has been playing really well, always putting the Jets in fairly good situations. This game in particular, there were no turnovers. He was really just distributing the ball very well. Robbie Anderson having 6 catches, 104 yards and a touchdown, showing that he can be a reliable target in this offense. Just another week where you kind of have to say, if you're a Jets fan, you wonder if you take this loss as a positive or a negative, where if you see this team as a playoff contender, then this was obviously not good. But if you saw this team as a middle of the pack, but you wanted this team to get a top pick in the draft, this loss, you kind of reassuring yourself that you might get a top 10 pick this year. So it just it's your take on what kind of Jet fan you are this season. But yeah, definitely a tough game to watch. It's probably going to be a lot more similar games to this for the rest of the season. What are your thoughts on this game, Chase?
Yeah, Atlanta still is a better team. The Jets are playing out of their mind right now. They're 3-5, but they've had a bunch of close games. They aren't losing easily. They're playing their butts off. They're playing well above their skill range. They just had 3 losses in a row. First losses of the Pats by only 7 points to the Patriots. I don't care if you think this is a down year. Losing the Patriots by only 7 points is impressive for the lack of talent that the Jets have. Then they lose to the Dolphins by only 3. That's tough because the Dolphins are definitely a beatable team, but they're still in it. And the Dolphins putting up 28 on the Dolphins D is still impressive. They got a good defense. And then losing to the team that got to the Super Bowl last year in the Falcons. Another great team. I know they haven't been as good as they were last year. But again, this is a Jets team that, by all accounts, by all writers that I saw, was predicted to finish worse than the Browns. And I think they were like maybe a hair above the Browns, just because I don't trust the Browns organization. Not that I really trust the Jets, but especially the Browns. They've impressed me. The 3-5 is incredibly impressive, and they were in this. If you're a Jets fan, I don't. This season was lost from the beginning. Everything was with house money, and a close game to the Falcons. This is one of the few seasons you can say this. A close loss to the Falcons is almost like a win for this Jets team. It builds confidence in the Jets that they can actually do something, even though they're pretty much devoid of talent, like almost across the board. Granted, they need to start using Powell more, but I think he's got some. But it shows that they can actually still compete with some of these guys. I don't think they're going to make a stretch, but you can almost say that if you get some wins this year, it's more helpful to the team because you install a somewhat better attitude among the guys, even if you don't get that like first overall pick.
That's very true. And also another good thing that I saw this game, Morris Claiborne really holding his own against Julio Jones. Granted, Julio Jones not having the season that he had last year, or just not nearly being as productive as people thought he'd be this year, but he's still one of the top guys in this league, just physical talent-wise. And Morris Claiborne, who we picked up this year, I was very excited about. Really did a good job keeping him contained. So definitely there's always good things to take out of some of these games, whether it's a win or a loss, because everyone knows this is a team that's developing for the future. So just another tough loss, but again, I feel like this team is moving in the right direction to an extent. Just staying competitive and trying to see where they end up in this draft, and hopefully they'll be in a position where they can make a play for a quarterback for the future, because McCown's not getting any younger, so they'll have to figure that out.
And you also got to realize you're playing a Falcons team that's desperate for a win. They started off 3-0 and they lost then they lost 3 in a row. Granted, the entire AFC East beat them except for the Jets, but they were coming into this game needing a win. They started off pretty rough. They needed to bounce back somehow, and the fact that they couldn't just push the Jets away when they were 3-3 and they needed a win and it was close, it's still impressive. This Jets team impresses me every week to a degree. It's I know it was lost and it was a loss and it stinks, but it's still impressive to I think more people than not in the league that the Jets. It's not just you guys are 7 games into or 8 games into the season, and you guys are 3-5. It's not 0-8. You guys have had some very close games. Like 3-5 is an impressive record. I'm not trying to just belittle the team, but they're still playing much above their skill level. I think there's no doubt in that. Like I don't think teams can go into the Jets just assuming it's a win at this point. You actually got to prepare. You're not the very, very bottom.
That's very true. Anything but the bottom of the barrel.
All right, let's hop over to my team. Or no. We'll hit my team at the end of these because I just talked for a little, and when it comes to mine, I just have a big injury rant to talk about. Let's head over to talk the Raiders versus the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills. I wanted to bring this game up not because it was great. Like, look, their choices for this week were slim picking. There were not many great games. You want to talk about a close game? We'll talk about Bengals Colts 24-23, but it's Bengals Colts, and no one wants to talk about that. Like Saints Bears, no one wants to talk about it. There is one other close game that we can talk about, and we will get to it, but we'll save that for another one. There weren't a lot of like great picks. I think 6 teams were also on bye, so there weren't a ton of games in the first place. We started off with a 40-0 blowout of the Ravens putting up 40 over the Dolphins for a team that you thought had no offensive capability at all. But let's hop into this Raiders-Bills game. Bills are 5-2, folks. They're a good team. Like Tyrod Taylor's numbers might not like stand out 20 for 27, 165, a touchdown, no ends. That's all he needs to do. This team is built off the run game. Shady had 27 carries, 151 yards, and a touchdown. Like this team is just built off the run. And like, yes, they just traded for Calvin Benjamin. We'll get to that after we review games. But I don't care. This team's 100% running, focus on running the ball, and they just destroyed a Raiders team, 34-14. A Raiders team that had won last week in convincing fashion against the Chiefs, one of the better teams in the league, and the Bills just stomp over them. Props to the Bills, and Sean McDermott really has this team running. Again, 5-2. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, definitely not something that people predicted out of a rookie head coach this season. Michelle McCoy also having a big day, probably his first big day of the season, if I'm not mistaken. He's been fairly quiet. He didn't score until last week, so this is only his second score, I believe, of the season. He had 27 carries for 151 yards and a touchdown, so a big day for him. They knew the only way they were going to win this game is if they ran the ball effectively on a defense that hasn't been very good against defending the run. And Tyrod Taylor just being Tyrod Taylor, he was completing a lot of passes, not turning the ball over, and scoring when he had to. Derek Carr probably put too much on himself in this situation. He threw for 313 yards, but also threw for 2 picks. So turnovers definitely didn't help here. And this was a team that everyone thought the Raiders were a Super Bowl contending team, but ever since Carr got hurt and was out those few weeks, it kind of ruined their mojo, their confidence really for this season. They just haven't seemed to really get it together. Granted, they did have that big win against the
Ever
Chiefs.
Since the Redskins game.
And the Redskins game, yes.
Yeah.
So they've kind of been in a flux really this season. They haven't really gotten a string of wins where you kind of look at the team and say, wow, this is a team that can really just make some noise in the playoffs and possibly go to a Super Bowl. This is kind of a team you're like, they'll get into the playoffs and it's kind of, we'll see what happens from there kind of situation. So the Bills have yet to play the Patriots so far this season, but they're 5-2 and they're staying with the Patriots. Those big games for the Bills in December, both against the Patriots, if they want to win the division, if they really want to make some noise in the playoffs, they'll have to at least split with the Patriots. The one coming up the first week in December, and then Christmas Day weekend, they're going to have Christmas Eve weekend, they're going to play them again. So those are going to be huge games. They're going to have a lot of AFC East games. So they're actually going to play the Dolphins twice in December, and they're going to play the Patriots twice in December. So basically the most pivotal part of their schedule is going to be in December, and they're winning and doing well now, but come December, they got to be playing at their best if they really want to make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're really going to have to. This team, I think, can do it, though, and that's what's interesting. I think this Bills team actually has the tools, at least on defense. They have the tools to get it done there. I like this team. Sean McDermott, props to him. This guy was Jimmy Johnson, the legendary Eagles D coordinator who died of cancer. He was built off of him. Was a longtime assistant there. Became D coordinator for the Eagles. Eventually, after Andy Reid, it might have been even before Andy Reid, left. He went to the Panthers. Was D coordinator there. Finally got a head coaching job. He's been sort of on the market and looked at for a while. And heck, stuff's really paying off. Complete props to him. He's really turning this team around, and nobody knows it because everyone's looking at like the Sean McVays, which are turning the Rams around, which is equally as impressive. But like, it's equally as impressive, and we're talking about the Rams, and we really haven't talked about the Bills that much. So props to them. They do have a tough schedule coming up. Again, they play the Jets this week. But Saints, Chargers, Chiefs, Pats, that's not going to be easy. Let's move on to probably the most exciting shootout we've seen. One of the most exciting shootouts we've seen all season. Texans versus Seahawks. My God. Deshaun Watson's a monster, and he still lost this game. I didn't get to watch a ton of it because I was watching Cowboys Skins during it. But Deshaun Watson's a real deal.
Oh, yeah. Outside of those 3 interceptions, which that's going to come as a rookie, this guy threw for 402 yards, 4 touchdowns against the Legion of Boom. well, not like the original Legion of Boom, but this is still the Seahawks secondary, which is still a very good secondary, and he was torching them all day. And he also led the team in rushing with 8 carries for 67 yards. Deshaun Watson's really been the guy that not a lot of people expected him to be in his first year, but he is surpassing any kind of expectation that was set on him for the first year. And he's really developing a great rapport. DeAndre Hopkins, who had 8 catches, 224 yards, and a touchdown. This was really just a shootout that nobody saw coming. Everybody thought it was going to be a battle of 2 good defenses, and whoever was going to play mistake-free football was the one that was going to win this game. To an extent, that was the truth. Like with Watson winning, with Watson throwing 3 picks. Obviously, if you're throwing 3 picks, you're giving the other team more of a chance to score. But this is one of those things. Whoever had the ball last was going to win, and Seattle had the ball last, and that's
on a 3-play how they pulled away with this one. Oh.
Yes, on a 3-play drive. I believe the game winner went to Jimmy Graham, I believe, right at the end. So, yeah, just a great game to watch. I was able to watch the middle of it. I was kind of back and forth between other games when I got home. But I think Watson's starting to look like that pick where a lot more teams are going to be looking in the mirror saying, wow, we passed on Deshaun Watson. That was really just a tough pill to swallow, and my Jets are one of them. Obviously, it's still early, but the early signs are very, very promising.
Yeah, this guy's just sort of not coming out of nowhere, but Houston finally has its answer, it seems. Like, they've been looking for a quarterback for forever. Bill O'Brien, granted, I'm not the biggest fan of him in terms of a coach, but he still has somehow had a winning record over his career as Houston Texans head coach. And I think he's had, like, a ridiculous, 7 or 8 quarterbacks start in his time there. Just unbelievable number, and still have a positive record. But yeah. So hopefully continue this. I like seeing Deshaun Watson play. I think he's just he's an exciting player to watch. He makes that team better. Lamar Miller, 21 carries, 54 yards, a touchdown. He doesn't even need to be great, but Deshaun Watson has 8 carries, 67 yards, just makes up for it. I think he just helps that team as a whole just thrive. Again, he had 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Again, he's a rookie, 3 interceptions, whatever. He still comes out in a very, very close game against the Seahawks. Trying to load up their record from before, but he's had okay, here we go. Finally, he's had 4 losses. The Texans are 3-4 right now, and that's surprising to say because you think with how Deshaun Watson's played, it doesn't make sense. But first loss, they got blown out by the Jaguars, 29-7, and that wasn't with Deshaun Watson at quarter. That was Tom Savage at quarterback. They have a close one versus the Bengals, and then Deshaun Watson finally comes in. It's against the Pats. They lose 36-33 in a close game. Then they destroy the Titans 57-14, lose to the Chiefs 42-34, putting up 30. He's put up 30 points the past 5 weeks. Every single third he's had. 30-plus points. That's unbelievable for a rookie. He had 33 against the Browns and then 38 against the Seahawks. And somehow he's 2-3 in that span. That's just unbelievable. I'm shocked that he's even at that. This team is much better than 3-4 with him there. I think, they're a borderline contender if he can continue this play. I'm shocked that their defense is allowing this much. Maybe it's the fact that Wade Phillips is now gone. But still, that's just great. Oh, not Wade Phillips. Who was? Oh no, it's Vrabel there now, but not Romeo Crennel. He used to be their coach, and he sort of stepped in to be the assistant head coach, and Vrabel's now the D coordinator.
Yeah, but all good stuff to see in Houston. You like to see Deshaun Watson, a good guy, really playing well down there. And then Jadeveon Clowney's also been playing well now with J.J. Watt out, and people are starting to question whether his career is over or not. Seeing Clowney coming back and playing well is really just a huge plus for that defense. So that's definitely a team I can definitely see contending in the playoffs. You're right, Chase, because they do have a lot of pieces that can make them good. It's all just putting it together and just becoming more of a dominant team, which they have more than enough time to figure out. And they're in a division where the best team is probably Jacksonville, who actually has been getting slightly better on defense, which we'll get into later. But I think their big test is going to be against those games against Jacksonville. If I can pull up the rest of their schedule, I'll see how many times they have left to face them. I'm not sure. I don't think they played them yet this year. Have they, or have they already?
They played them first game of the season and lost 29-7.
Here,
first game of the season, Texans.
Okay, yeah, going down first game of the season, yeah. So obviously that was without Deshaun Watson, and Watson doesn't play until he doesn't play until.
I think it was still the Patriots game. Might have been the Bengals game, but I think it was the Pats.
It might have been, yeah, it might have been the Pats. I think. So they won't.
He had playing time in I think both of the first two games because Savage didn't play that well, and he come in later. But yeah.
Yeah, so they'll play in December. So December 17th is the second time they'll go against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So obviously we're gonna have to see at what point are these teams at in terms of their records. But Jacksonville only has a game lead over the Texans. So if the Texans can just keep pace and then they can come into the Jaguars game with division title on the line, I'm going to like that game. I think that's going to be a really competitive smash mouth football game with a lot of young stars in that one. You'll have Leonard Fournette, Deshaun Watson, a young, tough defense on both sides of the ball. So I think that's going to be a very exciting to watch come in December. I think there's going to be some great interdivision games.
All right. Now, let's head over to the final game we're going to review. Redskins, Cowboys. I don't know what to say. This is just more than frustrating. This is not a Redskin. This is not the Redskins team from a few weeks ago. This is a Redskins team that is so banged up. It's unbelievable. I don't think there's a more injured team in the NFL than the Redskins. I'll just go through defense. Okay, they're missing Jonathan Allen, their first round pick, rookie who had been playing incredibly well this year, who DQ and I had drafted in our mock. I think I had him drafted 3rd or 4th overall. DQ had him 7th or 8th, and he fell to 17, which is just unbelievable. He's out. Matt Ioannidis in the first quarter, sophomore player, he broke his hand. He was playing like one of the best D linemen in the league out of nowhere. I don't know how, but through the first few games, he was just playing amazing. He broke his hand in the first quarter. We were also missing Bashaud Breeland. We were also missing Mason Foster, one of our inside linebackers. So and Stephen McClure, backup safety, was hurt during the game and is now on IR. So he's not playing. And Monte Nicholson, a safety of ours, got hurt during the game. He's questionable to play against Seattle next week. That's all just on defense. The worst part was our offensive line. We had 2 guys playing the majority of snaps that we picked up off the street 2 days before the game. And then we also were starting 2 rookies. One we picked in the 6th round. Another was an undrafted rookie free agent in T.J. Clemmings. There was a guy, Tony Bergstrom, who was in the locker room when the Redskins were playing, that Cousins hadn't met before and had to introduce himself in the locker room. He got about 6 snaps at the end because Morgan Moses, our right tackle, Laval, who started at left guard, who was a starter of ours, probably the worst of our 5 starters, was hurt by the second quarter, I believe. Yeah, the second quarter. And Morgan Moses, who was playing right tackle, was playing on 2 sprained ankles. Not to mention we had Niles Paul and Jordan Reed both got hurt in the game, so we only had one of our 3 active tight ends, which was just great. If you expect the fact that the Skins actually were sort of in this at the end and we're within a touchdown away. This is the third loss the Skins have had this year, where it was really a 1-possession game at the end, and then there was a fumble or interception for the final score to not be 1 possession. Like the Eagles in the first game, there was a iffy call on a fumble or interception to Fletcher Cox, which I don't necessarily know if I agree with him. We talked about that. Against the Chiefs, it also happened. There was a fumble at the end from, and then who do you call it? And then now against the Cowboys. So in 3 out of the 4 losses, it was really one possession games, but at the end wasn't that because of a end of game miscue. I don't blame Cousins on this. I don't think he had his best game, but again, he was playing with nobody, and the receivers he had, either Jamison Crowder had a good day, but Doxson dropped the ball, Pryor dropped the ball. Granted, Pryor, there was one Pryor catch people were blaming Pryor on. That wasn't really his fault. It was Ryan Grant running a route, bringing a defender over, so Cousins had to wait and then ended up throwing high. But it was I blame it more on Ryan Grant running a bad route. I don't know what to say about this team. It's so disappointing. I think this Redskins offensive line, when it's healthy, is a top 3-1 in the league. I think their tight ends can't block at all, but their offensive line is great pass protection. I think they can run block. It's just they don't have guys that end up helping them on the ends. And now we see how the team plays without him. And anyone who says this is Cousins' fault, that's BS. He didn't have anyone. He didn't have a running game. Rob Kelly did almost nothing. Chris Thompson, who's great, but a lot of what he does is through the passing game and short screens. He did what he could, and so did Crowder. But they just don't have. They just didn't have the guys, and that's why they lost. And it really puts a damper on the season because I think might be a season long issue.
Yeah, it's tough when you have 21 guys on the injury report. It's just on both sides of the ball because if you think about it, it's 11 and 11. You get 22 guys on offense and defense, and we have 21 on injury reserve. It's just the numbers don't add up in your favor when it comes to having your starters and even just capable backups coming in and helping out once in a while. So, as you said, this was a team that had plenty of potential to compete with any of these teams in the NFC East. But with these injuries, I think it's going to be a lot to overcome. I think, especially with Jonathan Allen going on, and Ioannidis, as you mentioned, showing a lot of potential. If you can't stop the run in the division where you have Ezekiel Elliott and now you're going to have Jay Ajayi in Philadelphia, which we will get into later, it's going to be tough to win those games. So
yeah, only way
it's just one of those things we'll have to see how the Redskins handle it.
Skins got a tough stretch coming up at Seahawks, Vikings at home, at Saints. Those are all division leaders currently. Maybe Seahawks aren't. Maybe Seahawks are tied, but I think they're all division leaders. Yeah, it's going to be tough, and I think if Skins want to stay relevant, they got to win 2 out of the next 3, and that's asking a lot because all 3 of those teams are very, very good teams, especially playing Seahawks on the road and Saints on the road. Impossible, just almost impossible to do. And not to say Vikings is easy because they're 6-2, and if we don't have an offensive line, that defense will just demolish Kirk. It's just frustrating. But yeah, I guess props to the Cowboys. But I don't even think I think Zeke's good, but Zeke's not even there. They're going to have to rely on Prescott. I don't think that Cowboys team is actually that good. They had a lot of Redskins seem to stay in it, and that's a team who was decimated and who had nothing. I think they're going to get blown out by the Chiefs this upcoming week. I don't think they're that good. I think their defense has glaring holes that if a team has a mediocre offensive line, they'll be fine. I really think Chiefs are going to Cowboys are not that good of a team, but still, let's move on. We sort of covered all the games for this past week. Let's move on to trades, and trade deadline happened. This is normally not an NFL thing. This is more like a basketball, a hockey, a baseball. This is a big thing there. In the NFL, the trade lines aren't that I don't even know what to say. There normally a bunch of stuff doesn't happen, and heck, I'm saying that not a ton happened this one, but there were some big moves that we actually can talk about, not like one or two small things, or like
The 5 and
this
3 Panthers have traded.
this this like this like I don't know, like backup corner just got traded for like a conditional 6th-round pick. No, these are like actual big trades. Let's start off with the first one that we heard in the morning: Jay Ajayi to the Eagles for a 4th-round pick. Damien, I want to hear your opinion on this first. I've got my own response after.
Yeah, this was obviously a move that I think Philadelphia was looking to make. I'm not sure if they were looking for specific players. Um, Obviously, this is a team that's in position to make a serious playoff run and possibly be in the Super Bowl. They have the best record in football right now. They've been playing really well with LeGarrette Blount and Corey Clement have complemented each other fairly well. I would say Blount is good when they happen to be leading the game and he just pound the rock. And Smallwood was good catch the ball at the back and making things move. But when Sproles went down, they lost a big dimension in that offense that really made them versatile, kind of unpredictable in a sense that you didn't know whether Sproles was going to run the ball or he was going to catch a screen in the backfield and run it for 50, 60 yards. So they kind of became predictable. But now with Ajayi, I mean, you get a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield, but he's not proficient. I thought a dark horse trade would have been trading for a guy like either guys that can really do well, that can get the ball out of the backfield and can give you those mismatch scenarios where they can go out and they can flex out into receiver and make that offense take that offense to the next level. But not a bad move. I think Ajayi is still a very capable running back of catching the ball and making those big runs. So
Skype briefly cut out there when you said the player you would have preferred. Was that Forte?
Forte, yes. So either Forte or Powell was one or the other. But I feel like Forte was kind of getting up in age, and it would have been tough to trade him. But I figured just by his name and his credentials and everything he's done so far in his career, and to put him on a team that has a better supporting cast and can actually compete for Super Bowl, thought would have made sense for a trade. But clearly the Jets didn't even want to trade him, period. That was just not something they wanted to do. Surprisingly enough, I thought that as a team looking for draft picks in this upcoming draft that they would consider making moves like that. But if all was quiet pretty much on the Jets front, except for a minor trade that we'll go into a little later. But I like the Ajayi move. I think obviously they wanted to make a move that was going to put him over the top, and Ajayi could be that guy that can really establish a good run game and open things up for that passing offense.
Yeah, first off, Forte, I just don't think people really wanted him. I think he's just too old at this point. He got used a ton when he was with the Bears. He's not doing a whole hell of a lot for the Jets. Like, teams aren't looking for a guy that they can improve. They're looking for a guy that can improve them. And I feel like Forte is just too old at this point. He does have a decent amount of money on his contract that you still have to pay. I just didn't see that. He isn't performing at that level, and best thing you're going to get is maybe like a 7th or 6th at this point. I just think he's too old in his career. Hasn't done much while he's been with the Jets. Hasn't really even had much breakout. And you've watched more than I have, so maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I've seen enough Jets. Maybe not this year, but over the past, like last year. And was he on it the year before? Was he on the last 2 years or one?
This is his second year, so this would be 2 years for him.
At least last year, unless it maybe changed a ton this year. But we went through the game like last week. He hardly played. And it is the Jets' decision to do that, but they're also not showcasing a guy. And that sort of shows that if he's not getting playing time, why would a team necessarily really want to put up something for a guy that might not be playing just because he doesn't have it left in the tank? But what do you call it? JJ, I thought that was a great move for the Eagles. As a Redskins fan, I'm not happy to see that, but a 4th-round pick, JJ is a dynamic running back. He can go to the Eagles and actually do stuff, compete. It might take a few games, but he's better than anyone they have on their roster. I know they said LeGarrette Blount's still the starter. BS. They're going to move LeGarrette Blount into that goal line role that that he had with the Pats. And hell, that's what they've been using now. They had Corey Clement, a guy they drafted, that they want to build into something. Right now, the Eagles are playing so well. You go for the guy that's going to improve your team, not just building on a guy. Um, I like this pickup. A lot of Eagles. I got family that are Eagles fans, and I don't think they loved it. But you only got him for a fourth round pick. That's nothing for a guy like this that can improve your team that much. I would have loved for the Redskins to spend even a third round pick on this guy because they have no one. Redskins have no one at running back right now. I think this was a good move by the Eagles. The Dolphins, I don't know what you're doing. You had Lamar Miller 2 years ago, and people were saying, "Oh, you don't use him," and there were issues in the front office, and he just didn't get along with people. So they trade Lamar Miller or let him go. I forget one or the other. To Houston, and Ajay's their main guy. He's the guy that's going to do it. He's the guy that was taking Lamar Miller snaps, and now Ajay has issues with the office, so they let him go, like for nothing. This is clearly moved by Adam Gase just to get rid of a guy that wasn't fitting in. But you only got rid of him for a fourth. I feel like you could have gotten more. I think this guy's talented. And who are the Dolphins left with? Like nobody. Like a rotation, and this guy was good. I guess if he doesn't fit in with the front office, you got to trade him somehow. Fortunately, as a Redskins fan, it's to the Eagles. Let's move over to a. This isn't that crazy, but an offensive tackle trade. The Houston Texans traded with the Seahawks. They traded their offensive tackle Dwayne Brown, a pretty solid tackle, to them initially for Jeremy Lane, a fifth round pick, a 2018 fifth round pick, and a 2019 second. News came out today. Jeremy Lane, the cornerback for Seattle, didn't even pass his physical. So now the Seattle Seahawks need to give up a 2018 third round pick to go with it. I think Texans got the better end of this. Jeremy Lane's an okay corner. I thought Texans already had a pretty good secondary, but I guess they're not doing so well this year. Their defense actually hasn't been that good. So maybe I'm wrong. But they're still getting a 2018 fifth round pick, a 2018 third round pick, and a 2019 second round pick. That's a good deal for Dwayne Brown. Good on the Texans, and I guess the Seahawks needed a left tackle. Their offensive lines had issues, and Tom Cable knows that. I think this worked out better for the Texans, I think, than the Seahawks.
I agree. I think getting draft picks is always something you want as a franchise. You never want to be short on them. You can use it for either trading up to get a guy that you want or just to build depth on your team. I'm always a guy that thinks draft picks first. Those are always something that you want just because it just offers you more flexibility for your future and even just building your roster right now. And Dwayne Brown, they've been having contract issues for basically the entire season. I think the Texans just got to the point where they knew they weren't going to re-sign him after a while, and they figured, well, we're not going to let this guy just walk away and not get anything for him. So we'll just trade him, and we'll get what we can for him. And the Texans definitely got a good deal out of this. I think definitely better than what they anticipated, especially now that Jeremy Lane didn't pass his physical. They were able to get a little more out of it. But I think the Texans got, the Seahawks got decent value in the sense that they got someone that can just shore up that offensive line to an extent. I don't think it's going to fix all their problems. You need five good guys to make an offensive line good, not one guy to make an entire unit good. So it's in a sense it's in a step in the right direction for Seattle to probably build up their offensive line for next year, even though they are competing for a playoff spot for this year. I just don't think they're not as dominant offense as they used to be, where they had those days of old when it was Marshawn Lynch and Max Unger and guys that could really just get down and dirty and run the ball really well. So I think that element of their offense is missing, which is making it hard for Russell Wilson to make plays in the passing game. Except for this past weekend, he just went on a total air show, him, Deshaun Watson. But I think both sides definitely got something out of this deal. But I like Houston. I think Houston really got a lot of good picks out of this. And as they say, if you can get as long as you get something instead of nothing when it comes to players and their contracts and expiring contracts, you definitely got some. You definitely won something. So definitely got to give props to Texans knowing that he was probably going to walk away and that they got some value out of him.
Yeah, like I think we both agree. Let's move on to another. This I'd say it was a trade, but it was like an almost trade. The Browns screwed up yet again. Oh, Damien just hit his face just in frustration. Not that he's a
I'm
Browns fan, but I think just if you're just a normal, just NFL fan, you got to feel for the Browns, or at least the Browns fans. Not necessarily the Browns because this is on themselves. I feel bad for Hugh Jackson because he wanted Garoppolo, he wanted AJ McCarron, he wanted Deshaun Watson, and all these guys are passing. McCarron being the guy we were talking about, they had a trade in place where, we there's still two trades after this, and we'll get to one of them. Garoppolo to the 49ers. The Pats only got a second round pick for Garoppolo. The Browns were trading a second and a third round pick for AJ McCarron. That's surprising. I think Garoppolo is better right now, or at least has a higher ceiling at minimum, um, than AJ McCarron. I thought AJ McCarron just sort of going to be a lifelong backup and a good one at that, but just a backup. The Browns were giving up a second and a third for him, and they couldn't file their paperwork and get it to the into the NFL on time. So he's not on their team. AJ McCarron's not starting quarterback. How frustrated do you think he is?
Yeah, pretty frustrated. But I think we discussed this before we went on the air, Chase. It's either he breathed a giant sigh of relief that he wasn't going to be the next starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, that long, dreadful list of starting quarterbacks, or he's ticked off that he doesn't get a chance to start. I think, obviously, as a football player, he's ticked off that he didn't get a chance to go somewhere else and start because clearly they're not going to pave the way for him because Andy Dalton's their guy. But definitely surprised with the value of the trade, Chase. I do agree. A second and a third for AJ McCarron, who, yeah, I think he'll definitely be a good, serviceable quarterback for somebody that's looking to have somebody looking to just have him come in, see if he can just kind of hold the fort for a while to see if they can find a quarterback in the future. But he could even have the potential to be a good quarterback for a while. But I think at Bama, he was mostly just a guy that knew how to control the game, knew how to make the right decisions, knows how to run a pro-style offense very early on in his career. But the Niners the Patriots only get a second-round pick for Garoppolo. I thought that was a good deal before I heard this possible trade because Garoppolo only has a handful of games that he was able to show, and obviously people can look back and say, well, look at what happened with teams trade for Brian Hoyer or Matt Castle. Like they all showed potential, maybe not as high as Garoppolo, but just as capable of being a starting quarterback. And you got one good season out of them, and they just kind of ended up being mediocre quarterbacks that weren't anything special. So I thought it was fine for the Niners to trade a second-round pick. It's a good system for Jimmy Garoppolo to be in with Kyle Shanahan calling plays in San Francisco. I think he's got a good chance to be a good quarterback there if they can get good pieces around him. But the value is definitely strange when it comes to the Browns willing to give up second and third round picks. Granted, the Browns have more ammunition draft picks wise to go around with.
They have 2 first round and I think like some ridiculous amount of second round picks in next year's draft. It could be like 5 or something crazy.
Yeah, so clearly they had a couple second round picks where they could kind of throw at a team, and it's also surprising to see an interdivision trade too. Those don't really happen all that often, but clearly Cleveland and Cincinnati were seeing eye to eye with this trade. But unfortunately, they missed the train, so to speak, when it comes to getting the paperwork in time. But definitely a good trade deadline. Probably one of the better ones in a while.
And yet we're still missing, like Garoppolo we talked about. I think that's a good move. I think the Pats sold a little low on him. I think they could have sold him early. But I think he's going to do well there. I don't think this is like one of those like Hoyer or Mallet or whatever trades. I think this is the what do you call it? The Patriots trading guy a way that they liked. I heard they were in discussions with him trying to get him to sign a long-term deal with the Pats to be their sort of quarterback after Brady. And stuff just never went through, and they realized they weren't going to be able to sign him, so they figured, okay, we'll trade him. I think that they could have gotten over a first-round pick, at least from the Browns earlier on. Maybe they have enough respect for Garoppolo to send him to a place that he has a chance to succeed with Kyle Shanahan there. And granted, the 49ers still haven't won a game, but we all think they're better than the Browns. But
Yeah,
yeah,
an
yep.
interesting point I've been looking into too after this trade, because now San Francisco is one of those teams that's going to have one of the top three picks, and now people are saying this could take them out of the conversation of taking a quarterback at the top of this year's draft if they like what they see in Garoppolo. But obviously, I think if you spend a second round pick on a guy,
Yeah,
you
I don't
you
think
have a
that.
feeling that he's going. I don't think you're going to kind of throw him away and say he's not the guy after not getting a real good look at him.
Yeah,
So
I
now
think they're
there's an
banking
interesting
on
conversation that
re-signing him.
they're banking on resigning him, yes, and then there was also the possibility before this trade that Cousins was going to be a guy that was thinking about going to San Francisco because of the Shanahan connection. So now there's a whole discussion of
Yeah.
wondering where could Cousins go next if
Oh,
there's
there's
nothing done with the
the
Redskins.
the thing with that is that okay, here we give me a sec. Like there was talk about that, and again, I'm a Skins fan. There's some chatter about it on the radio, but the chatter is pretty much like just look across the league. If okay, 49ers are out of it now. Let's just go down. I'll just go down through some of these teams. Okay, Bills, Dolphins. Okay, Dolphins might need someone depending on if they move on with Tannehill or not. Jets might need someone.
Mm-hmm.
Looking down, Broncos would be a great place for him to go. You think Elway wouldn't want Cousins coming in there? They already have a great defense. Already have Demarius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. C.J. Anderson's not a bad running back. You think they won't want him? You think that the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger's considering retirement? Like that could be the perfect place. They already have a great team set up. Um, uh, Browns will clearly want him. There's no denying that. Bengals, if they're that bad, then trade Dalton or something. The Titans, Jaguars would easily want him. Go there, low income tax. You already have a great defense. You have a running game. You have the Allens as receiver because you have Allen Robinson back next year. That's a team already set up for success. Okay, Texans are now out of it, but I just went just through the AFC. That's not even the NFC. There's so many teams that are going to want him. I think heck, the Giants. The Giants. If Eli Manning's not playing well, you decide to trade Eli Manning somewhere and pick up him. Oh my! I would freak out as a Redskins fan. I would not want to see that. But that's a team that could clearly want him. The Cardinals the Cardinals. Carson Palmer's getting old. Might want to move on from him finally. The Vikings, who knows if Teddy Bridgewater's actually going to be healthy? There is rumors that he's going to play, but you don't really know. Like I think the NFC North, there's not really anyone other than Vikings, and then finally at the NFC South, Drew Brees. This is his final year. They're looking good. Are they going to re-sign him? Are they not? Are they just going to go for Cousins? Like there's so many teams. There's going to be such a big market. And again, when I say Browns, you're like, oh, well, he would never go there. They're just a horrible team. That's where quarterbacks go to die. Yes, but he can still use that as leverage with money and stuff like that. Like Browns are so willing to pay me $30 million. Like you got to come close to that. Um, yeah, like there's still so much demand for him. I don't think taking the 49ers out of it. Granted, I think it helps the fact that Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan are two guys that are taken out because Goff looks to be like the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, and that now they got Garoppolo and San Fran. Those are the two guys he's very comfortable with. All these other teams I've talked about don't really have guys that he had that much of a personal connection with, compared to uh, the like I guess Jay Gruden at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's going to be interesting offseason. I didn't even think about going through a whole list. I was kind of thinking obviously my team was the first initial thought of possibly they're going to have a lot of cap space. It's definitely going to have to be the team that's going to have a lot of cap space going into the season because he's going to ask for a lot of money, and unless you have a lot of cap space and a bigger cushion after that, like if you're looking at north of 60, 70 million in cap space, those are the teams that are
Yeah.
probably going to have a better shot at landing him out of most teams that are kind
Yeah.
of tight for cap.
It's crazy. I just see that there's literally a team from every division. I don't think it changes that much. Let's get to the final trade of the of trade deadline, or at least big one. Kelvin Benjamin traded to to the to the Bills. Sorry. Uh, Bills earlier trade for Sammy Watkins. or no, they traded Sammy Watkins and then they traded the Eagles for Jordan Matthews. I still mix that up today. Um, like I don't know. Like Kelvin Benjamin's playing all right. This is a run-based team. You got a bigger receiver now. He can probably block with that much weight. um,
He's
uh,
a bigger dude.
like I think it was a bunch of late round picks, so like I don't think that it's really that bad. Um, like I'm sort of meh on this trade. I don't think it changes a ton, other than improves Devin Funchess' fantasy stock.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Like
it's
I
going to be
don't want
interesting.
Kelvin Benjamin on my fantasy team. I'll tell you that. But
No, but I think when you look at the Bills, when you just look at the entire roster now, in terms of their offense, so you have Tyrod Taylor in as your quarterback, then you have Charles Clay as your tight end, then you have Zay Jones, who's a promising young rookie, Jordan Matthews, who will come back eventually, then you have Kelvin Benjamin, and then you have LaShawn McCoy. That's a pretty solid collection for an offense. That's definitely something where Tyrod Taylor can be more comfortable spreading the ball around. He's got a bigger target than Benjamin. He's got a guy that can move the sticks in Zay Jones. And then he's got Jordan Matthews who can kind of do a little bit of everything. He's kind of one of those guys. He's more of a possession receiver, maybe, if anything. But he can do a lot that could help that team. And then LaShawn McCoy, if they can get him rolling, that's going to be a tough offense to stop because there's going to be a lot of options that that team can go to. But that's a big if. That's if Benjamin can figure out this team's offense and getting on the same page as Tyrod.
yeah, like you put it that way, I didn't even think of all those how many offensive pieces they have. That's actually pretty impressive. And yeah, shoot, I didn't even think of that. But and I guess that helps Tyrod. He's really a game manager, and they put enough pieces around him where they just sort of have to put up points, I guess. I guess that's just another layer to success that they'll have. Let's move on to the final segment of the show. Next week's games. We're going to just go through a bunch of just sort of go through. We'll go through all the games. We'll sort of breeze by some of the ones we don't think are that important. But DQ tomorrow night, your Jets play against the Bills with all that talent. I'll give you my pick now. It's the Bills, and no offense to the Jets, but we just went over all those pieces and how the Bills, I think, are a very good team. They're going to be 6-2. Yeah. Do you guys anything to say?
I'm in the same boat. I think it's still going to be a competitive game, but I think the Bills are just going to make more plays than the Jets. Tyrod Taylor is one of those guys. He's going to make plays with his legs, and I don't know if the Jets will be able to contain that on defense. And I think that's going to be the backbreaker because that's how he's always beaten the Jets or how he's beaten the teams in big games like this. He's able to use his legs when he knows when he can. And I don't think Benjamin will be that big of a factor in this game just because he was just traded to the team. But LaShawn McCoy has been rolling pretty well, and the Jets defense has been having a tough time stopping the run. And if you're a defense and you can't stop the run early, then you're going to have a long day. So I think that this is going to sink the Jets a little further in the loss column. And this is kind of one of those moments where the team and the fans are going to think about when's it time to take a look at Christian Hackenberg or Bryce Pay to see if one of those guys can be your future quarterback. So I think it's going to be one of those tough games to watch tomorrow on Thursday night. Unfortunately, just another great color rush game on top of what looks like to be another rip out my heart and stomp on in the fourth quarter type of game.
Yeah, I think Jets will play this a little bit closer than I expected, but Bills will pull away. I'd say like I'll put like a 7. I'm trying to. Let's put out like maybe 27-17. Bills win this.
Yeah, I would say 21-14.
Bills will put up like a field goal in the last like 8 minutes of the game to sort of seal it. Bills will be in control most of the game, but Jets will always be lingering around. That's sort of my projection.
Probably more like a 24-17 or 24-14 kind of game, I think.
Like I think that's the score, but I think the reality of the game isn't going to be like a blowout. Bills will be in control, but not that easy. Let's keep moving on. Rams versus Giants. Rams win this. Giants are bad. There's nothing else to say. Rams are a much better team. The Fighting Sean McVays are going to beat the losing Ben McAdoo's. Um, the Fairfield University tight ends coach. Um,
I think if
uh,
there's one thing that the Rams have to watch out for is that they are one of the worst running defenses in the league, and the Giants ran fairly well on the number one defense in the league. So obviously, I still think the Rams are going to win, but if the Rams are going to want to beat the Giants handily, they'll have to focus on making sure their run defense is tight against the Giants running backs, which aren't anything impressive. But if they're able to make something happen against the number one defense, then I mean, it could be interesting, but I still think the Rams are the better overall team. The Giants are just not I wouldn't
Giants
say competitive
Giants
team.
defense is good and could give Goff some fits. I agree. It's not going to be easy, but they still have Todd Gurley, who's been one of the best running backs in the NFL, sort of quietly, which is weird to say, because you go back 2 years ago and it's the exact opposite. But I just think that the Giants offense can't do anything, and it's just they have such a bad offensive line. They don't have any receivers. It's Giants defense might keep them down for a little, but eventually the 49ers, or no, they're not 49ers. The Rams are going to wear the defense out. They'll have the ball too often, and that's going to be the deciding factor in the second half. I think Rams put up like 3/4 of their points, just because they're going to have the defense worn out because there's going to be a bunch of three and outs from Eli Manning and not letting the defense take any time off. Um, moving down, Eagles versus Broncos, staying in the East. Eagles win this. I hate to say it, but Broncos. I like them better with Brock Osweiler at this point. Paxton Lynch just clearly doesn't have it. Um, Eagles are just playing out of their minds right now. I wouldn't expect J.J. to do much. They just traded for him. He's going to need some time to adjust. I'd say maybe next week or heck, maybe even the week after. Um, when Eagles win this, they're not even going to put up a lot of points. It's sort of like this like Broncos are a lot like the Giants in the fact they have no offense and a very good defense. But Eagles are just sort of very good all around. Broncos aren't going to be able to rely on the run because Eagles have the best run defense in the league, headed by Fletcher Cox. That yeah, Eagles win this. I like it's hard to get around that.
Yeah, and the Broncos defense is not good against tight ends in particular, and you have Zach Ertz, who arguably is the best tight end this season, going against this defense. So I think Carson Wentz is going to look for Zach Ertz early and often. I think the receivers might have a tough time against this secondary early on, but I agree, Chase. I think the Eagles overall are just a better complete team, and right now the Broncos are kind of in a musical chair situation with their quarterback position, which is not something that you want in the middle of the season. So I think the Eagles pulled this off too.
All right, now let's hop down to my team, Redskins at Seahawks. I think Redskins will be able to put up a fight if they get some of their linemen back. Like if Spencer Long comes back, I think Trent Williams might be done for the year. He's already playing on a torn ligament in his knee or leg somewhere. I think it's his knee, but that he can play on. I think you almost want to just sit him to prevent long-term damage. I think Brandon Sheriff will be back. I think that Morgan Moses will be playing like he did last week. I think Laval will be back. I'm not sure about Spencer Long, but Chase Roullier is not a bad option. It's still not enough. You're playing the Seahawks. That defense is still just dominant. Redskins, I'm interested to see if just who plays at all. Like, if Breeland plays, that's huge. Having two corners like that. Granted, I do like Quentin Dunbar. He's sort of become a really good corner. This is third year playing that, granted, because he was a receiver at Florida before coming into the NFL. It might be his fourth year. I forget. One or the other. I think it's his third. I think Skins can do it, but I don't think they will. I think it's going to take a lot of things going the right way. A lot of guys being able to play in the game, and not only being able, but staying in the game. I say Seahawks win this. They've been putting up points. Skins just have a bunch of injuries. Seahawks take advantage of that. Probably win this like 30-20. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Redskins are going to have a lot of injuries to overcome. Probably too much for them to handle. And this is also in CenturyLink Field. Definitely not an easy task to take on, to travel all the way to the West Coast, then play in a really loud stadium like that. And also the Seahawks coming off pretty impressive win against the Texans in terms of getting their offense going. So unless, like you said, Jason, unless they can get Breland back and Norman, where they can kind of get those outside options out of the way for Wilson and just kind of keep things in the middle of the field with Jimmy Graham to kind of limit the explosiveness of their offense. It's going to be a long day sledding, but I'd have to give the edge to the Seahawks just because just straight up they're just more healthy than the Redskins. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of hard to go against.
Redskins can barely field the team. Yeah. They're like looking at scrubs at this point, or they already have. This isn't next man up. This is like next man's up.
Yeah, the next closest man that you can grab, literally.
Whose man's? Whose man's is this team? I legitimately don't know.
I legitimately have no idea.
Chiefs, Cowboys. I said this earlier. Chiefs are going to win. Cowboys are not that good. I don't care if this is in Dallas. Cowboys, they don't have Zeke. Chiefs are one of the better teams in the league. My fantasy team relies on them. But Chiefs are just the better team. I don't actually, and the thing about this Chiefs team is like the past few years you're like, oh, they got such a great defense. Their defense isn't that good. This team is offensive based. Alex Smith has been going off. You got Kareem Hunt running the ball, one of the best top in fantasy running backs there is. Travis Kelce's been playing out of his mind as well, and that's without even mentioning Tyreek Hill, who's just been playing amazing as well. I'm surprised that the line's only KC -1. The Cowboys are not that good. They beat the Redskins because Redskins were horribly, horribly injured. Chiefs are a better team. Chiefs win this.
I agree. I think Chiefs are the better team overall. And when Dallas doesn't have Zeke now, that really just takes a lot of things out of their playbook arsenal. And it's going to put a lot on Dak Prescott, which I think is not going to favor the Cowboys. Even though they are at AT&T Stadium, which you have mentioned, I just think that the Chiefs overall, they just have a lot more of a complete makeup to them. Kareem Hunt has been playing out of his mind this year. Tyreek Hill just always seems due for a long bomb. And the Dallas defense is just not good. They're just really not a good defense at all. And even though the Chiefs, they're not particularly impressive either, they're just flat out better than the Dallas Cowboys defense. So I'm going to give it to – although actually if you kind of look at their numbers are fairly similar, but I just think that the Chiefs have more big-time players with Marcus Peters. Then you have Justin Houston and a lot of young guys that can make some big plays when they need it. So Chiefs should continue rolling. Dallas without Zeke is not the same team as they would like to be, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Dak play without Zeke, but there's going to be stuff that's exposed on this team. I think the Cowboys could actually. Let me pull up who they're playing in the next few games. If it's Chiefs, Falcons, Eagles, Chargers, Redskins. That's a tough stretch. And Redskins is Thursday night after Thanksgiving. And Cowboys obviously are playing Thanksgiving as well, so they're back-to-back Thursday nights, as do the Redskins, because they play Giants on Thanksgiving. They could go on a 3-game losing streak here. Chiefs at Falcons, Eagles. I think all three of those teams are better than the Cowboys at this point. Falcons being very close. Especially without Zeke, Falcons are better. Yeah, and Chargers aren't an easy matchup either. They put up a tough fight against the Pats, and if Travis Benjamin wasn't that bad and knew which way his end zone was, it might have been a little bit different. But let's keep moving down the line. Ravens, Titans. Ravens 4-4. Titans 4-3. Titans. This is in Tennessee. I'm interested to see this. Ravens have a good defense, but it sort of plays off and on. They still have a great mentality. People are talking about firing John Harbaugh. I like John Harbaugh. I love him as my coach. I know they've had issues, but I don't know who to pick in this, but I think it's going to be a lot closer, and I think a lot of people are going to be heavy on Titans. I think Ravens are going to keep this close. They're coming in with confidence. I'll pick Ravens to win this. All of them win this probably like 24-20.
Yeah, this has been a tough one for me too because I feel like they're fairly even. But I was looking at some fantasy matchups for this week, and the Ravens actually don't have that great of a run defense, which is not something that that wants to establish the run with Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray. And Mariota, still coming off that injury, I think he's still still recovering from that in the sense that he's still trying to get back up to game speed. So I think they're going to rely on the run a little more in this game, and they're going to try and get a lead early. Flacco hasn't really played well at all, and I just think it's going to be the Titans, but it's going to be like a slight victory. I would probably say they'd win like 20-17.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think it's going to be close. So, like, regardless, it's fair. I was close to going Titans. Buccaneers Saints win this. This is Saints at home. Maybe if it was at Bucks have talent, but they just aren't able to put together wins, and that's got to be incredibly frustrating. But I just think the Saints are a better team right now. Saints are behind 7 points. I'd probably take Bucks expecting them to lose on this, but Saints they're just run heavy between Ingram and Kamara. It's not like losing Peterson actually hurt them. It probably helped them, if anything. Breeze is still Breeze. I like the Saints team. They win this.
The Saints defense has been playing a lot better too, a lot better, which has been probably the most surprising thing this year in the NFL because the Saints have always just had a terrible defense. Probably since their Super Bowl win, they've just never had good defenses at all. But for some reason, some switch must have switched on for them in this season, and they're just playing lights out. They're playing really well, and that's probably the reason why they're starting to win these games. And then Ingram and Kamara are really good, complementing each other for Breeze, and then Breeze is just being himself. And the Buccaneers, like you said, they have talent, but they just haven't seemed to put it together this season. Saints should win this one.
Yeah, Saints win this. Moving down the line, staying in the NFC South, Falcons, Panthers. We don't even need to stay on this long, but I think it's going to be a good game. I still think it's going to be good. Panthers 5-3, Falcons 4-3. Falcons need this. I think Falcons win this. Panthers have been up and down. The NFC South as a whole has been up and down. You don't really know what to expect from any team other than sort of the Buccaneers, but again, that's still not going to be an easy game. Falcons need this more than anything else. I think they find it. Panthers have just been too inconsistent, and I think Falcons are going to get this 2-game win streak and then just continue to roll a little bit from there.
Yeah, I just don't think the Panthers really have enough on offense, which is kind of funny because the Falcons haven't really been that great on offense. But trading away Kelvin Benjamin kind of puts their offense in a weird situation where you don't know how they're going to perform without him because there are some games where they were performing really well, and there are some games where they're not performing well at all. So I think I'm just going to go with the more consistent hand in the sense that you know that Matt Ryan's going to give this team a good chance to win. Even though he's been having somewhat of a down year, he hasn't really been turning the ball over as much. He just hasn't been explosive. So I think they're just trying to stay within the parameters of the game plan and just trying to just kind of beat teams on talent, which is what they can do to an extent. So I like the Falcons too, and this will put them in a good position to get back into that division title mix.
Yeah, I think it will push them back, and I think they're. I just don't trust the Panthers. I just there's something about them. Like they'll be really good one week, really bad the next. I think that the Saints or Falcons are going to come out on top of this. It could be any of those three teams. I'd probably lean Falcons or Saints slightly more. Yeah. Scrolling down, Bengals, Jaguars, don't need to talk about. Texans, Colts, don't need to talk about. 49ers, Cardinals, don't care that much. Sorry to just run through these, but again, these are games that I think we either don't care who wins or we just already know. Raiders, Dolphins, sort of Raiders' last chance to get in. Dolphins are 4-3. I think Raiders will win this, even though they have the worst record at 3-5. I think Raiders are a better team. Dolphins, how they were 4-2 at one point is beyond me.
Yeah, with Jay Cutler at the helm, I have no idea how they even have a winning record right now. I guess that's a lot to Adam Gase, but if the Raiders want to get anywhere close to being on track, they got to win this game, and they got to start getting on a stretch of wins if they want to be serious about making the playoffs. Because right now, the Chiefs are pretty much running away with it, and they're going to have to see if they can maybe squeeze out an extra spot by beating out the Broncos later in the season and just by beating a lot of AFC opponents. So this is probably a very significant game for them down the stretch because the Dolphins, if they keep this up, they could be battling for a playoff spot as well, which is kind of crazy to think, but
If they
you
keep
never
this
know in
up,
the NFL. If
I,
that's a big if,
they're
though.
they're going to topple. They don't have an offense. Their defense is pretty good, but they just don't have an offense. Like do you want Matt Moore or Jay Cutler? I just I do not see. I know this, the Dolphins are 4-3, and yes, I know that they were in the playoffs last year. I almost don't see a scenario where they get in, even if they're 4-3 right now. It's sort of a very weird situation with them, but they have not looked good. They are like bottom 5 in every single like significant category in the NFL. It's sort of shocking. It's like that fantasy team that just sort of like doesn't end up scoring much, but wins like 4 games in a row where it's like they win like
Kind of,
65-61. It's like just happening to catch every single team on their worst day.
it's kind of like me, right? That's pretty much what my fantasy team is. That's pretty much how my fantasy team has been for the
uh,
past 2 years.
yeah, but the Dolphins are even more than that. Like the Dolphins are even more than that. Like yours is
They're like the
definitely that.
exclamation mark in
Dolphins are
front of
like,
the exclamation mark.
how are you here? You guys shouldn't have won a game yet. Like imagine the Browns winning 4 games out of their first 6 last year.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I
Okay,
didn't send an invite
they're
to you
better than the
guys. Why are
Browns
you
because they
here?
have a defense, but still. Um, let's get to Monday night Lions Packers. This is in Green Bay. Packers, I believe, are coming off a bye. Brent Hundley's their quarterback against the Lions, who have been struggling. I think the Lions win. The Lions are a better team. They're going to win their second game in Lambeau out in like the past like 20 years or something crazy.
It is quite shocking, and Stafford has quietly been playing very well so far. And I'm sorry when you don't have Aaron Rodgers and you're the Packers, that's a big advantage that you're losing right there. And unfortunately, he is going to be out for the season. There may be a chance of him coming back, but it's unlikely. I just think even the Lions are, even though their record may not show it, I still think they're a fairly competitive team, and they may make some noise in this division now that Aaron Rodgers isn't playing.
Mm-hmm.
But in this game, I think they could easily go into Lambeau and pull this off. And it's kind of weird to think that this would only be their second win in 20 years because you can kind of forget how bad the Lions were. They're almost as
I
bad
don't know
as
if
the
it's
Browns at one
20,
point.
but it's been a while. I can just say that.
And I could see that too.
Like they won
Yeah, I can
one
definitely see
last
that
year or
too.
2 years ago, but like that was the first in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I still think Stafford is playing fairly well this year. Maybe probably getting on the same page with Golden Tate a little bit more will help him out. But they should be able to go into Lambeau and just hopefully eat this rookie up alive, and that's probably the only way they're going to win this game. They got to really take advantage of the rookie's mistake.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, his full rookie season, I would say, when he's playing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that does it for the show. Again, this whole podcast thing is new to both of us. We both listen to plenty of them, but we're sort of learning the ins and outs. It is different than radio. It is sort of one long take. We might look into cutting it up a bit. But I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you back at some point next week. Hopefully, it'll come out a little earlier than it will this week. I guess peace. Anything you say, Damien? Just sorry before you head out.
Peace, baby. See you next week.
Peace.